Started. We are so grateful that you are here with us today. We have a conversation about I'll Push You. So we have Justin Stisek and Patrick Gray who are here to talk with us about their journey. They have written a book about their experience. There's also a documentary about their experience. And so we are going to take some time, do this about an interview format here. I'm going to ask some questions that you guys have shared ahead of time. And then towards the end of our time together, we'll open it up so you guys have an opportunity to also ask questions. If you want to put questions in the chat now, I'll try to get to those if I can as well. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everybody just a little bit better here. And I am going to ask our first question, which is, gentlemen, how did you meet originally?
Want me to take this one, Pat?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So Pat and we're born 36 hours apart, same hospital. Parents knew each other growing up, and even our moms went to church camp together in fourth grade and fifth grade, somewhere around there. And so there really hasn't been a day where Pat and I haven't known each other. Living in a small town in Eastern Oregon, and just we didn't go to the same, we went to the same kindergarten, but not to the same elementary school, but same middle school, same high school.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's how we met as babies.
yeah.
I'm the
Almost like
older
you.
one, not necessarily wiser, but
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's almost like we didn't meet. It's always been,
yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how your motivation to walk the Camino came about? How did you guys get started with this idea?
That's Justin
Yeah,
initially.
I'll
So
take the first part, I guess. I had never really heard about the Camino. So this was 2012. Um, I was sitting in my living room, just minding my own business on a Saturday morning, and Rick Steves Europe comes on, and it was the episode on the Camino where it starts off in Pamplona and all that, and then finishes up with the Camino. And as I was watching that, I just something just inside of me just like you need to go do that. You need to go do that. I've heard people say the Camino calls you. Uh, in my case, that's what happened. And I asked my wife, and she said, if you want to go do it, go do it. And then I asked, Pat was visiting me. I was living in San Diego, California at the time. We both live in Idaho now, but where we grew up. But he was coming down to visit me for spring break, and I had recorded the episode, and I said, I showed it to him, and I said, hey, you want to go on this 500-mile journey? And he's like, yeah, I'll push you. That was his response. So that's the name of the title of the book and the movie and everything, because that's what he literally said when I asked him. He's like, yeah, I'll push you. Like there was no hesitation. It was just like, all right, let's do it. And then it was just like, okay, what are we getting
what
ourselves
now?
into? Yeah.
So, had y'all done anything remotely like a Camino or a long distance walk or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up backpacking, did a ton of hiking. Justin's more of the beach guy, for vacation. Although I will say he did do a long trip in Alaska in high school, which is pretty cool.
I
But as
did.
a rule, I'm the one who's the adventure seeker and the risk taker, but I'm usually in the woods by myself or with a few people or climbing. This was completely different from
Yeah.
anything that I'd even considered.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about the planning of it, the logistics of how you decided to walk and where you decided to start, and just kind of walk us through the decision making of all of that piece?
Man. Um, I don't know. I mean, we knew we wanted to do we knew we wanted to start in France and start in Saint-Jean. Uh the first thing that we had to figure out was wheelchair. Uh, um that was the first discussion. So, you know, uh at that time, the we'll say the off-road wheelchair market wasn't exactly a lot of choices to have. But it's a actually really cool story. I was doing some research and found this guy in Vancouver, British Columbia, who was an engineer and made the chair that I used. I've used this chair now for 6 Caminos I've done. Is he made it for his best friend who was a quadriplegic, I think. And they used it for just doing regional trails. And the rule was just from a planning standpoint, with the rule was that it had to be completely manual, so no batteries or nothing. And so Pat and I could work on it together. So the first was just wheelchairs. Second was um if I kind of going way back, we haven't been asked this question, I think, in a very long time. I think it was mostly just, okay, well, how much time we're gonna
Yeah.
need. Uh, we just followed the
Hmm.
Brierley guide and the
That's a
Michelin
lot
guide,
Bradley.
right? The Michelin guide as far as distances. And then
No,
we,
we didn't start using the Michelin guide until the last 2 weeks.
oh yeah, because it's much more accurate from a
Yeah.
distance standpoint, elevation standpoint. But it was
Yeah.
pretty much just, and then we got the idea to do the film. That's through Patrick's boss. Maybe Pat, you want to talk about that for a little bit, which kind of played into our planning and all of that. So,
Yeah. Sure. Sure. So, I mean, just going back to what Justin said about, the French way, starting in Saint Jean. Also, we chose that route because, I mean, we were trying to do this as bare bones as possible. And so we needed as much access to potential help. So most heavily populated, most heavily traveled, that was kind of a no-brainer for us with regards to, Justin being in a wheelchair, and also the highest chance that we're going to run into people who want to help. uh, but as far as the film goes, I was working in healthcare at the time, and my boss, Ed Castledine, who, if you've seen the film, he's in there, has become a mentor of Justin and I. Is just an amazing man. But we were at a barbecue for my work. It's a spring barbecue. This is basically a year and 3 months before we left. So this would be 2013. Um, Justin's living in Italy with his family at the time. And so at this barbecue, it's a Friday. My family's there, my little kids and everything. I'm pushing my daughter in the swing, and Ed comes over and we start talking. And I actually saw a guy pushing himself in a manual wheelchair on the sidewalk of this park, and it just kind of clicked. Like, okay, there's never going to be a right time. It's just we got to have the right mindset. And if we're going to do this, I mean, time is limited. We don't know how limited it is, but we know it's limited. So I said to Ed, I said, "Hey man, I'm gonna need 6 weeks off next summer." And I'd never asked for more than like a week off at a time. Justin and Ed had not met yet, so Ed was very perplexed as why I would ask for so much time off in a row. But I explained to him Justin and I's relationship and what Justin's idea, how where it came from, and what this kind of idea was kind of brewing in our heads. And he went from very reserved about giving me time off to so excited in just a blink of an eye. And what he said to me is, "Patrick, I'll do everything I can to get you 6 weeks off, but you have to promise me you'll do everything you can to document this on film." And when I asked him why, he said, "Because if you don't, you're selfish and you're irresponsible." And I was like, Ed doesn't mince words. He's very direct. But my response to that was kind of just dumbstruck, right? I was just like, wait, what's happening here? He said, "There's too much hope not to share it." So next morning, get on a Skype call with Justin. He's over in Italy, so it's in the afternoon for him. And I lay it out for him like, "Hey, here's the deal. Next summer's it, sounds like, and we got to find a film crew."
which I think too much more took a lot of the precedence for planning. The actual trail
It
was
did.
just like,
We'll
we'll
figure
figure
it
it out. That's pretty much how that worked. Yeah.
Can you guys talk about the logistics of like just kind of a typical day? What did it look like? Did you get up early? Did you walk a certain, it's
Oh
kind of sounds
man.
like you guys have a certain set of distance you're trying to get, but can you talk about an actual day?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll take this one because I was up before and in bed after. It depends on the day if you're washing clothes or if you've got some issues with gear, that kind of thing. But basically, my day would start about 5 a.m. I get up, make sure the chair is dialed in. I get myself ready. I would shower every morning just to kind of get myself awake, so I was alert as possible because I'm taking care of somebody, all day long, and I can't afford to make mistakes. And still, mistakes were made. There's things where I left something behind. I will say I did leave Justin's toothbrush behind, and we used we used the same toothbrush for like a week and a half. It was so gross, but you know what? You do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever shared that before.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, yeah, 5 a.m. or so, get up, showered, get ready, make sure the pack is dialed in, and then depending on where we're staying, typically Albergue, it'd be, you know, get Justin up, get him ready, get him situated in his chair, pack all his stuff up, make sure his backpack is dialed in, do a double check again to make sure we have everything, and then, grab some food on the way out the door. And it really didn't matter, except for a few occasions, how early we got up. So we always wanted to try and get going as early as possible. But for us, that 5 a.m. start means we weren't on the trail until 7:30, sometimes 8, because there's just lots to do. So everybody else would get up at 5:30 or 6, they'd be gone 15 minutes later. And so do your distance, if it's hills, whatever the trail offered, you dealt with it that day. And then it would be the reverse process at night, find a place to eat, find a place to stay, and get Justin ready for bed first, get him tucked in and everything. Then I would go get showered and just washing clothes that happened after. And I get in bed sometimes 11 o'clock at night
Yeah.
and rinse and
Rinse and
repeat the
repeat.
next day. It was, yeah, it was very much the first few hours, the last few hours were what were repeated every day. And then we just kind of took the middle as it came.
Yeah. So we did about 6 days on, 1 day off, 6 days on. And then we
As a
took
rule, yeah.
and then we took 2 days off in Leon, right? I think that's what we did. Was we finally got
Yeah.
to Leon and we took an extra
Yeah.
day.
That was
Pat's body was
not good.
starting to give him some issues, so we took a break. But yeah,
We
that's what
had a
people. I don't think people
Yeah.
realize that. Like when in the film, kind of shows it a little bit, and the book talks about it a little bit. But when you do that day in and day out, you have to understand that Pat's doing double duty. So he's not only getting me up and getting taking care of me, but he's also pushing me on the trail all day long. Like, so it was
Mhm.
like a miracle that he didn't get injured severely at the beginning of the trip. So it
Yeah.
was, I think my role was to watch over him to make sure that he had, it's like, it's not a race. We're trying to get to the end. So,
Hmm.
um, taking breaks when we need to and making sure he got what he needed. It was a dual effort, but Pat did a ton of physical work, a ton.
You bring up something really important too, Jay. You mentioned that, there's the destination, and it started off for me that I was focused on the destination very much, and I was not embracing all the beauty that was happening in the journey, and that there was an evolution that occurred there where I started to understand, the pacing, not just physically, but the emotional pacing that I needed, the mental pacing. And Justin did a lot to watch out for me, and then also our buddy Ted that came with us on the first, he was with us for 10 days, 7 days of hiking, got us over the Pyrenees. Like I am convinced that I avoided severe injury because he took on so much in that time frame. It allowed me to condition myself a little bit more, and he actually put himself in a situation where he actually got a pretty severe knee injury, wound up having to have surgery, because of all the work that he did, and just a lot of situations where there's a lot of sacrifice. A variety of people, but Ted and Justin both sacrificed a lot to make sure that I was where I needed to be here and where I needed to be here.
So along those lines, how did y'all train before you went?
Pat, you
Haha.
take this one.
So, I started training a year before we left. So 12 months out, it was 6 days a week, twice a day. So in the mornings, I got up very, very early. I was usually in my garage on my bike riding for distance at 4:30. I would do a lot of metabolic type stuff, a lot of calisthenic driven body weight stuff, which to just focus on endurance. And then the evenings, I'd focus on strength training in the gym. And I didn't miss a single day for 9 months.
Mhm.
I didn't get sick at all. I mean, it was a miracle I didn't get sick as hard as I was working. And then about 3 months out, that last 3 months of our 1 year time frame, Justin's chair that you mentioned earlier showed up, and then I abandoned all efforts in the gym, and we were just getting miles from my trail. And so we started off the very first time we took it out was a park across the street from my house, and it was just fun. My kids, Justin's kids, got to push him, in the chair, get a feel for it. But then I think our first hike slash walking this hike was probably 6 or 7 miles because I was just in really good condition already, and we got up to 10 to 12 to 15, and long, long days. But you just put the time in. It's very
Yeah.
different than when you're training just for hiking.
Yeah, because yeah, your upper body, lower body. I mean, if you any of
Yeah,
you pushed me in my chair, you would understand.
yeah.
And it pulls you down the trail or pulls you because of the weight of the chair. So
There is
you
momentum.
walk faster, and all that. But one thing that when the chair showed up that Patrick mentioned when we first got in it, part of our training was just to figure out how do we work in it together because people have the assumption that I'm just sitting there and Pat's
Yeah,
doing all the leg work. In reality, we're both working together. Like I'm counterbalancing, I'm leaning. We had to figure out like, okay, if we're going down a slope, I had to counterbalance. So I'm constantly leaning one way or the other, or back, or guiding. I'm the navigator because sometimes Pat's head's down, so um, I'm calling
yeah,
out, and then Pat. So we had to figure out how to work as a team, and we even figured out like our rope system. We have a rope system, a pulley system. So if somebody popped in, we had to figure that out. That was a trial by fire, like look going way back on that, but yeah, it was. Pat did his, I mean, he did not mess around. He was in the best shape I think you've ever been. And it still wasn't enough, right?
yeah. I would like to be in that shape again, but
Yeah.
So
yeah.
speaking of your rope system here, what unexpected issues arose? How did you address them? And maybe what was the hardest push that you guys experienced in terms of maybe a day or an experience?
Hmm.
Well, some expected things were like my braking system on my chair. Pat would have to kind of readjust that from time to time because he's using the brakes all the time. Um, just kind of dialing that in. The front wheel broke off my wheelchair second day in. So we got over the Pyrenees,
Second.
and then couple miles in, uh, it snapped off. So we had to figure that out and get that welded. That was a major issue because it's kind of hard pushing a three-wheeled wheelchair with two wheels. So,
Yeah,
but I probably
rickshaw.
said the hardest was the Pyrenees, like by far. Second was Ocebrero,
Hmm.
um, Ocebriero, or I call it Ocebrero, but um, that was probably the second, right? Um,
Yeah, I
just
would say so. Yeah,
logistically, just trail wise, it was tough. Yeah, it was really tough. But
yeah, yeah.
And what was the
Well,
most, oh, sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to ask, countering that, what surprised you or was the most memorable experience y'all had?
Oh, memorable. I mean, that's a long list. There's so many cool things that happened. But the category of things is just how many people just stepped in to help. They were just so willing to help, often without being asked. Like one of my fondest like moments. We're talking literally 30 seconds on the trail was when Ted had left, and I was struggling getting Justin up a little slope. I was making progress, but it was hard. It was loose gravel, and this 5 foot nothing Italian dude just walks up, shoves me out of the way, and pushes Justin to the top of the hill. Ciao, does this and just takes off, and we never saw him again. He's like, hey, I can help right here, and it's those moments just happen day in day out. But that was one that was so vivid because this guy, like, I dwarfed him in size, and he just smoked me on that hill. Just got Justin up and
yeah.
over, and he was just electric with energy. And then like he just waved and off he went. That was it. Never got his name or anything. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw pop up in the chat, John Martinez, who went with us on one of our accessible Caminos. What's up, John? Love you,
What's up,
brother.
John? Hey, buddy.
Yeah, the running of the bulls. That was well, we didn't do the running of the bulls in Pamplona. It was a
Los Arcos.
strawberry festival. I
Yeah.
don't know how, I still don't understand how bulls fit into strawberries, but okay. Um, I
Yeah.
pushed Pat and Ted to go out and try to put a ring on a bull, and Pat almost got hit.
It was not smart.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's in the
Yeah.
book.
If you read the book,
Not
you,
more.
yeah.
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 I'd say for
That was a
me,
sketchy day. Man,
I'd
go
say
ahead.
one of the most memorable experiences for me is, and it's something I was thinking about the other day, and it's so random how I was thinking about this, but it happened so quick too. It's like one of those things where I don't even know where we were. We're probably three-quarters of the way through the trail, some small hamlet town or whatever, and we passed by this door. Pat might remember this, and we see these two old ladies, like really old, and one lady had fallen in the doorstep, and the other lady was trying to pick her up. And before I could even call it out, because we were zipping by it, Pat had already hit the brakes, went back, picked her up, brought her in the house, and sat her down. And I think she was like kissing you or something like that.
She tried to
Um,
kiss me on the mouth. Yeah.
yeah, she was
That was
kissing
weird.
you. She had a thing for Patrick, but it's like it's those little moments. Of course, there's the big moments that are the most. You got the big ones like going over. Uh, Going up some incredible trails and down things where you're just like, how are we going to do this? But it's the little. I think it's for me, it's the little things that kind of pop in that stick with me, um, and how you just well, Patrick touched on it earlier again. It's just we saw so much the good side of humanity. And it was regardless of, anybody who's walked the Camino, a lot of people are probably here who've done the Camino can probably attest to that, is that there's just, regardless of your background, there's just so many good people in this world that we just don't hear about it or see about it. And the Camino is one of those leveling fields or play field, they're just kind of leveling ground where everyone's there for a common purpose and you're just trying to figure out how to get there. And people just poured into us and really helped us along the way. And lots of conversations, lots of funny dinners and interesting experiences and all of that. But too many to list. But yeah, the common ground is good people in this world. Yeah.
So we had some questions about the expansion of an accessible Camino. Is there a bigger vision here? Were you restricted to certain paths because you weren't able to take others? And so can you guys speak a little bit to that and what you experienced and maybe what you're seeing now?
Well, I mean, for us, the Accessible Camino was born out of an idea that Justin had, where we had a lot of people reaching out for advice on how do we do this. I have a friend, I have a brother, I've got a sister, whatever that would
Hey,
love to do
Pat.
this.
Pat, hold on. Your audio is
Yeah,
kind of dropping out a little bit.
take
It's
it.
really
Go ahead and take it.
there. I think you're good now. It was kind of
Oh, that's
muffled.
weird. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Now we're
Now
good.
you're good. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think I moved my hand over the microphone. My apologies. Um, but so we had these people reaching out, and it went from giving people advice to Justin saying, "Hey, maybe we should see there's a way we can actually take people. At least on the last 100 kilometers." So there's so many obstacles, and one of the biggest hurdles for anybody, especially someone who's dealing with limited mobility, is housing and shower access, because skincare is such a paramount concern, right? I mean, you get a D cube or a bed store that starts on the Camino, that's not going to go away. In your time you're there, there's just no way. You spend so much time in your chair, and there's so much sweat and energy involved, and you move people around. It's just going to get worse. And so we put our heads together and figure out, okay, let's remove as many barriers as we can. Staying with a group of people on the Camino in albergues is not realistic. Not access to enough bathrooms. Some of the beds are too low or maybe too high to get all these things that people really obsess over when they're traveling domestically, let alone internationally. And so we switched into, well, if we can get hotels that have accessible rooms to make sure these people have access to what they truly need to, to function day to day, then we can get them on the trail. And so we figured that out, off and running. First one we did, we took 10 chairs and a gal who was visually impaired, and 3 helpers per person, and that was not enough. So don't do that. Next trips, we went to about a 5 to 6 to 1 ratio of our helpers to those that need assistance. And it's a massive amount of work to put these together. You got to find the right alchemy of people. You can't just take anyone. We have people that want to go that are, they're on oxygen. We can't take oxygen on the trail. There's people that want to go, but they don't have someone to care for themselves. They can't get on a plane. We can't just have someone just show up without understanding your ADLs and what you need. And so there's a lot of hurdles we had to kind of address as we're going through putting this group together. Not to mention, we got to make sure that people who are volunteering, we have at least 4 or 5 that have healthcare background, in case we get in the pickle. And that has just grown into, it's a great thing that we get to experience these people. We love it, but we have no plans to expand it. Actually, we're doing our last weeks in 2026. So we have 2 trips.
Hey, I'm
Sorry,
losing you. We're
Patrick, you're
losing you
dropping
again,
out.
dude. I'm losing you. I'll take it up. I'll take it from here. So we have yeah, we don't really have a vision to expand what we're doing. So our last ones will be in 2026. We have 2 that we're planning. And so those will be the last time that we will be guiding and leading accessible caminos. And we do the French way and the Portuguese coastal. So starting in Vigo and going north. 2 completely different caminos if you've ever walked both of those. And I love them, but it's just for us, we're kind of getting to the point where it's really difficult. So we're we're not going to necessarily take what we've done and pass it along to somebody else to do it. But we have had conversations of maybe, you know, um, educating people to if they want to do it, then they can learn how to do it and plan for it because it's an effort, as Patrick has mentioned, to do, to take 6 wheelchairs, you need 5 or 6 bodies. But to kind of go back to your question, Allison, like one of the things that we learned on the trail, well, just know first and foremost, if you have a disability or if you're wanting to take somebody who has limited mobility or even various kinds of disabilities, like not just physical, but there could be you know, disabilities not just wheelchairs. There's, vision, hearing, there's cognitive, developmental, there's a myriad of issues there. Um, but there's things that we learned along the way is that I think the last 100K is probably let's just call it quote unquote most accessible, if you were to call it that. And I'll give it to I don't know who's in charge of that. I don't know if that's within Spain. They're doing as much as they can to to make the Camino a place where anybody can do it. And it is pretty cool because, and I'm not to say that we're the ones who made the change, but maybe we kind of started the momentum. But if you notice now, if you go to, you get your credencial, your pilgrim's passport, there's a wheelchair icon there now. And before that was never, it was walking, horse, or boat. I think those are the 3 icons that were
And
there.
bike.
Or bike, 3, yeah. Um, and so now there's a wheelchair one. So it's really cool because we've come across people in chairs and
Mhm.
on the trail ourselves. So uh, it's really cool to see that the Camino can be for anyone. You do have to sometimes take different routes. Like sometimes you have to go the road or you have to take a side route. You know, we get there eventually. But it's, when you have the help that we've had on our accessible Caminos and you have enough people, you can pretty much do the trail the entire way. So we've gone through water, we've gone through go all the bridges, we go through all the stuff that everyone else goes through. And it is quite the experience. It is. if I must say. So did we answer that question? I think hopefully
Yeah,
got it.
that's great. And we've got some folks here who may not know exactly what it is you do now, but you take groups of pilgrims. Can you talk a little bit about what you do now as a result of y'all's experience? I know you've kind of touched on a little bit. And then can you also talk about some of the ways that volunteers are also helping with your organization as well? We've got some questions about that.
Yeah. So you want me to take this one, Pat? Or you want to?
Well, am I coming through okay? I'm sorry about
There we
that. I
go.
don't know
Yeah,
how.
you're good. Okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
So what we're doing now, yeah, you're talking about the accessible Camino itself, right?
Yes.
Yes,
So
please.
we we've done 5 accessible Caminos so far. We did one in 2019, 2 in 2022, and 2024. We're planning to do 2 more in 26. And so like Justin mentioned, it's the last 100 kilometers on the Portuguese and the French way. And we put application out there. Anybody's interested, it's accessiblecamino.com. That's where you can find us. Just spell it out, accessiblecamino.com. And both volunteers as well as those who need assistance sign up. It's the application process. We interview people that are, considering going. Because we had a lot of people who are really excited about the idea, but they want to be a cheerleader. We don't need cheerleaders. We need people who can actually help. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we have to kind of really dig into this process of making sure we have people who understand what they're getting themselves into, both as someone who needs assistance as well as someone who's going to be helping. And so there's a physical requirement, right? You can't just not work out and train and go up and think you're going to be okay hiking for 6 days straight, let alone pushing wheelchairs. But we put these groups together and we take people on those last 100 kilometers. They all get their credential. And literally it's something that they never thought possible, but because of people who step in and want to help, this dream is made a reality. And so I've seen several comments pop up where, how do I become a volunteer? You literally go to accessiblecamino.com, you sign up on the wait list for 2026, and the application process will begin in August, September-ish of this year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what we do. And that's our side gig, if you will. We have jobs, we work, but then we work part-time throughout the year to put these things together. And then, yeah, we're doing the last 2.
We speak too. So
Yeah,
we speak at different organizations and all that. That's not as, it used to be kind of our full-time thing, but we're not doing that as full-time. So as opportunities come up, we look at those and go speak to organizations, which is really cool too. So helps spread the
yeah,
community that way.
yeah. Did that answer your question, Allison?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So along those same lines, are there any plans for a sequel or another documentary about what y'all do?
No,
Well, no, not for us. Well,
not
yes
for
and
us.
no. I mean,
No. Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Our lead film guy, Trevor Lubens is he's been with us on all the accessible Caminos. We take a film crew with us that documents everything, and that's not for consumption in the public. It's just for our patrons to be able to have video footage and photos to document their trip. Because when you're head down working hard to get down the trail, you don't have a lot of time to take photos. You don't have a lot of time to slow down and do X, Y, or Z. And so we have a videographer and a photographer that are there with us. So Trevor's actually putting together a crew. We said we're not doing a documentary again. It's so much work.
Yeah.
We have a habit of biting off more than, well, I guess just as much as we can chew, right? I mean, our mouths are pretty full though, and we don't want to do another one. It consumes so much of our lives for several years. But Trevor's actually putting together, trying to do something where it's going to document our last, these last accessible Caminos, kind of the bookend of the story. So it would be the answer to I'll Push You, in that it was just the 2 of us that led to a lot of curiosity from people and shares. Can I do this? To being on the trail with individuals from all over the world, with all walks of life, all stories, and kind of wrapping it up with a nice, neat little bow that way, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
But not us.
We have a couple of questions about how you brought the Camino home with you. How do you see it in your everyday life?
Good question.
This is a question. Yeah, it's a great question. We get this at the end of every Camino we do. Everyone's like, what do I do now? Because I mean, whether you've been in a chair and experienced it, you pushed, or you've done a regular Camino, that type of life is not sustainable, right? At home, you can't do that. And so we always challenge everyone that it's the mindset. It's not the daily living that you can embrace. You can't go out and walk 12 miles a day and and not work. I mean, it's just not sustainable, the way to approach the physical aspect. But the mental aspect is what's the most important. You have to take it home. You have to take home the mentality that I can press into someone else's story anywhere. It doesn't have to be on the Camino, and I can let people into my story anywhere. It doesn't have to be on the Camino. It can be. I mean, I think at one time, Justin and I were traveling back from a speaking engagement. I'm exhausted, and I don't have any energy to put into anybody else. Um, and we sit down at a restaurant, and this gal is eating by herself. And Justin turns to her and says, "Hey, you want to come meet with us? Let's chat." Invites this gal over. It turns into one of the coolest conversations I've had in my entire life, and I never would have done that on my own. But that's a small sample of it's that mindset, right? It's there are people out there who are hungry for connection, hungry for purpose, hungry for love, just like we all are. And we have to weave that into the decisions we make every day. Um, and there's a danger in doing the Camino and approaching it as something like I've arrived. I've got this new experience. I've got this new mindset. I've got this new way on life. And there can almost be an arrogance sometimes that I come across with people that have done the Camino, but don't really understand the Camino because they're not living it out in the day to day. They have to go back. If you have to go back to the Camino to experience it, you missed out on what you were supposed to experience. I believe that wholeheartedly. You should be able to come home and find ways to embrace a journey with the people who are right beside you, even though they've never stepped foot on the Camino in profound ways. And it's all comes down to loving people well. And it's hard to do when there's distractions, but I am convinced that is the most common theme in a conversation I have with someone who's done the Camino and what they want to their lives, how they want their lives to be different. I want to love better. I want to love more, and we can always do more. Like we never arrive. The Camino is not an arrival; it's a journey. It's just one step.
And you can have good days, you can have bad days.
Yeah.
The way that it is. I think for me, it's just kind of tag teaming on that. It's opened my eyes to
Hmm.
just being a lot more aware of things, conversations, people I meet, looking for opportunities to just listen and just be there. Um, maybe it's because I'm a little bit more extroverted, so I'm happy to, engage in conversations with strangers from time to time. Um, but Pat's right. It's a lesson. It's taking what the beauty of the Camino that it offers. It's really a gift. If you get to walk it, it's a gift that's given to you. Now, what do you do with that gift? Um, and try not to push your agenda on other people, and just sometimes you just listen. And it's hard when you live in a world where, you got lots of voices coming at you from different angles and trying to push certain things. But if you get to the core element of it, is how do you love better? How do you live better? And that's what I've learned from it too. So it's totally changed my life. Yeah.
Did you hold that thought as you were walking the Camino, or was there a thought that you held as you walked? Were there particular sites that kind of inspired you as you walked to kind of think about the inward Camino as you were going to?
On the first one, on the
Yes, or
one,
now.
I would say for me, I mean, what it what stuck out to me the most was the conversations that I've had, not necessarily the environment. The environment on the Camino is beautiful. I mean, 90% of it is beautiful in my opinion. There's sometimes you're coming into town and it's not exactly pretty, um, but I remember one day I think we are coming into Leon, and I don't even know exactly where it was. It was kind of a blur in some areas, but I remember looking at the wind was blowing, and we're kind of cutting through this little valley, and there was wheat on either side of us, and it was like multicolored wheat. It was like green and tan yellow wheat, and the sun or the wind was blowing it. It was just this beautiful blanket of the wheat just kind of flowing. And just like, I think it was one of those moments where I think I talked to Pat and I was like, dude, that's unreal. Like what you're looking at, you know? And it kind of one of those things that stuck out to me, but most part, it's the conversations that stuck out to me. Uh, that you just find yourself having conversations that I never thought I would have. I think what it is I don't know if it's a thing like where people my rule when people push me is one, don't kill me. Number two, you got to tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, and whatever that is whatever that is. And I don't pry or anything. If you want to just just tell me about your life or just even your day or even what you're thinking at the moment, that's fine. But you got to talk to me, of some sort. So those just starting with that had opened up so many conversations of like really amazing, life-changing things to very hard conversations that people were having that you don't know what to do but to just listen. So, yeah.
Is there any thought about leaving your collective wisdom in what you guys have created? And I know you said 26 is your last one as an organization, but have you thought about leaving collective wisdom about how others could do this, or suggestions or resources for those who would like to support someone who's going to be walking with someone who has mobility concerns?
You know, it's it's such a case by case basis because every situation is so unique. We're just open as a resource. Does that make sense? Having a hard, fast rule of how you can put something together, it's not gonna. What Justin and I built, we built it around our skill set and our experiences, right? And so it's skewed to us, and to just pattern that alone, it could be helpful to a certain degree, but it's not gonna fit every situation. So we've approached it more of like we're here as a resource. We've already had people that have connected with us that want to do something like this in the future, and but they're gonna have to build it around who they want to serve, how they want to serve, and there's so many organizations that are actually doing this already. I mean, we mentioned earlier in our conversation before we started with the whole call, you have this Camino. That's one that's active and getting people on the Camino with limited mobility. There's a group that I'm drawing a blank on the name, but they work specifically with kids with cerebral palsy out of France. They've been doing this for years, and it's on the Camino, it's on bike trails, it's on backpacking trails, it's all kinds of things. And so, not collective wisdom because um, I hope I'm saying this the way I mean it is that if, like, say, Allison, you came to me and you map out your situation, the conversation we have about what you're going to be able to accomplish and the collective ideas are going to be so much more valuable than just putting on experience. Because that's static, and things change. I mean, just the trail we did on the Portuguese in 2022 versus 2024, completely different because they put a train right through where we took the trail in 2022. We had no idea. All of a sudden, we've got a 20-degree pitch. We got to get wheelchairs up that wasn't there 2 years prior.
Ooh.
And so that's just a small example of things are constantly changing. Just the trail itself is changing. Someone's disease process is changing. Access to tools around chairs, around ADL, your activities of daily living resources like shower chairs versus certain devices that have come out. I mean, things are changing so fast that I would be hesitant to do something like that because it would be a disservice to someone down the road, as opposed to, yeah, let's talk about it. Here's our experience. What are you dealing with? And then point them in the right direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That is the end of the questions I have for y'all. So I did want to open it up to folks in the chat, or if folks who are here, if
Sure.
you want to raise your hand, I will call on you and you can ask your questions directly. We're happy to do that too. So I will open it up to the group who's here to ask questions.
We're fair game. So anything you're thinking of, ask it. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
any,
any religion? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, yeah. Any religious experience at all. This would be a bit of a game of semantics for some people, but I would say it wasn't religious at all. It was entirely spiritual. Um, and what I mean by that, I'm gonna dig into my background a little bit, and Justin and I are on the same page here. If I offend, I don't mean to, but there's been a shift in my mindset where I've stepped away from religion and pressed more into relationship, because in my mind, relationship should trump religion every single time. You look at any religious leader from any faith, Jesus, Buddha, you know, go into books like Siddhartha that are fiction, but what it comes down to is that the relationship is what matters. And when you press into relationships with I don't want to say aggression as in like the negative form, but you aggressively pursue conversation. You aggressively pursue insights from somebody else. You come in with an open mind and an open heart. Those are such spiritual experiences. And that was every day on the Camino. The first time and every day on the Camino, even when I'm stepping back and I'm helping kind of orchestrate these accessible Caminos and more in a role of very much like directing things, like a cruise director, if you will. I don't know how to describe it, but I mean, I have a lot of responsibilities, even with the responsibilities that take my time and attention away from the really heavy moments, they're still there in spades. And that's some of the most spiritual stuff I've ever experienced. And so, yeah, I hope that answered your question about the religion piece.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's where you see God at work. I mean,
Yeah,
because we
yeah,
come from a Christian background, so that's our lens that we look at it from. But
for sure.
I see that's where you see God at work, is when you kind of put off to the side, at least for me, is my opinion, focusing on pressing into relationships, you can see beauty right there. And it's amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. Patrick, there's a question for you. How did you evolve as a caregiver through your journey?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but I was a bedside nurse for years. When I actually went on the Camino with Justin, I shifted into administration. But I've been caring for Justin. Gosh, first time I gave
Jeez.
you a shower, uh,
2010-ish, somewhere around
20,
there,
it might have been earlier than
maybe
that.
earlier.
I was
Yeah.
thinking when Kirsten took off, yeah. But so I that caregiving piece was always there from my career standpoint. And then I'm stepping into a role where I'm caregiving for a friend, which is definitely different. It's much more intimate because not
Very.
only are you having are you having these intimate experiences where, like, it sounds weird to say that, but helping someone toilet or shower is an intimate thing. But when you have the history, the stories, the shared inside jokes, all the things that pour into one shower, one time in the bathroom, and then times that by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, like, it's given me such a great appreciation for what kind of trust someone must have to let you do that for them. Like, that is, like, when you do it for a job as a caregiver in a nursing facility, I mean, that trust is there, but they're there also through often no fault of their own, through extenuating circumstances. In Justin's case, or the people that come on the Camino's case, that any of these individuals that need help, they're willingly putting themselves in a position where they're trusting me to care for them. And so my skill set didn't necessarily change, but my appreciation for what kind of gift that is, the two sides of gift giving and gift receiving coin, it almost feels like that trust is it not almost, it does feel like that trust is a much greater gift than anything I could ever.
It's great. Speaking of that, we had a question that we are obviously all of us very touched by y'all's friendship. Can you tell us a story or a memory from y'all's childhood?
Oh gosh, so many.
uh,
Uh,
oh geez. Wow. I mean, where do
Go with
okay.
your gut.
Um, I think, I mean, some of the things, okay. So uh, in high school, and we talk about this in our book, but I wasn't a huge sports person. So, I played tennis and I played soccer, but they're not like super high contact sports, like I'm getting hit. So then Pat won my sophomore year, convinced me to try out for the football team. Never played football before, ever. Uh, and I was probably the worst player on the team. Worst player on the junior varsity team. So I was at the very bottom of the list. Um, I just remember that vividly. You're like convincing me to play out for this
Come on,
team,
man.
and I was like, and it's like I was terrified every day in practice, like I mean, I'd get to the line. I was a lineman, so I'd get, a defensive end. So I get on the line and I'd literally don't even know the plays. So I'm like, I'd learned, took to a guy next to me. What do I need to do? Like, go left. Okay. Like, I'm telling you, it was like, oh, geez. But here's another, I'll be quick on this one. One time, Pat and I did a homecoming, and both of our dates ditched us. Uh,
Hmm.
and we ended up slow dancing on the floor together.
You're like,
Oh,
well,
yeah, whatever. Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
yeah. No, yeah. If you haven't read the book, we actually dig into a lot of our childhood stories too. And there's some doozies in there. Um, but pay attention to the ones from high school. There's a lot of good ones that I don't know if I want to share them just here because one, they're kind of long, and two, they're horribly embarrassing. Um, but I will tell you this: read the book because there was a point in time where, okay, I'm gonna tell a story. I'm gonna tell it real quick. Here we go. I was on homecoming court. Justin was,
your voice, your
I drew
phone's dropping
photography
out
for
again.
yearbook.
Sorry, man.
Am
Like
I
your
am I
voice.
okay? Am I okay?
Almost like it's kind of muffled. It sounds muffled. Is your microphone muffled?
I think you're okay, Patrick.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, man. Sorry to interrupt you. My apologies.
So real quick, quick story is
Mm-mm.
Hornet Tucks.
No, no.
Read the book.
Read the book.
I'll tell it real quick.
Oh, okay,
Pat
go
was on
ahead.
homecoming court. He walks out, just about to walk out in front of an entire, you know, uh, audience of lots of people, and his fly was open and his shirt was sticking out of his pants. So I walk up to him and I go, "Hey man, your fly's open." And I tuck his shirt back in, and I zip up his pants. Is that what you're gonna say? Is that what you're gonna tell? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. The longer version, but yeah.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate y'all sharing that. I'm gonna have this as our last question, and then
Sure.
before we leave, we're gonna go back to a couple of other pieces here too. But the last question for y'all is, how has your experience on the Camino impacted your children and spouses then and now, and have they been on it?
I'll answer quickly.
Yeah.
My kids have walked the Camino with me. My oldest son and my youngest daughter, I have three kids, two boys and a girl, have walked it with me twice on the Accessible Camino. My wife has walked it twice with me, and then my middle son has walked it once. So, um, but prior to that, I think what I've seen in my children is uh, just a lot more compassion, a lot more empathy. I think they have that kind of going into that, having a dad who has a disability, and my kids do a lot for me. They don't shower me or anything like that, but my oldest son does help me sometimes get me onto the toilet or whatever, and so seeing that compassion play out in their lives is it's pretty amazing to see that. So that's what
Mhm.
I'll answer with that.
I'll try again. Am I good?
Yes.
I don't know what's going on with my microphone. I'm sorry. Same thing. A ton of compassion. And also it's awakened a sense of adventure. So all three of my kids have been on two Caminos. They're planning on coming again in 26, if they can. My wife's been on two. And it's just, yeah, the combining a sense of adventure, a love for travel, and a love for people. It's like that's the trifecta, right? I mean, That's what you want your kids to have, is to look at people through eyes of compassion and empathy and grace and mercy and love, and find ways to experience more with those people. And it's, it happens over and over and over, and it's amazing.
Well, we are extraordinarily grateful for you sharing this experience with us. We have the chat is lit up with thank yous and just appreciation for your openness and your time with us, and what you not only give to yourselves in the friendship that y'all have, but also to other pilgrims as well. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen for just a minute and give folks just a few more resources as well. We know that your organization is doing a lot of great stuff. We also wanted to share a little bit of reminders that here at American Pilgrims, your membership and donations go to support entities that receive grants from us. And so we're going to talk about two of those specific ones that do support folks who need support as they're walking the Camino. And so I'm going to show a little bit of information about that. But if you're looking for any information about what we do here at American Pilgrims, we have a website that's full of information. You can get credentials from us if you're going to walk. We also have local chapters around the United States. We've got volunteer opportunities, as they talked about here today. They also have volunteer opportunities with their organization as well. And then we have social media as well. Well, we wanted to talk about a couple of grantees that received money from us in the last grant round. We had a Camines group, which received a $6,000 grant for electric wheelchairs. And this allowed them to help improve accessibility on all Caminos. And they have since met with the Pope to also share some of the work that they're doing as well. So that's a great organization that is connected with us as well. And then Discamino, which the gentleman here shared earlier, they also received a $6,000 grant, and they completed the purchase of a van that allows them to transport equipment that supports folks who are walking the Camino as well. And so those organizations, and then here we've got a couple of pictures from Discamino. You can see some of the folks who have gone on the trips together. You can see here's another one here. So, so with that, we are extraordinarily grateful for y'all's experience, y'all's time, what you do. The chat has got more thank yous in there as well. And so we just want to say a hearty buen camino to everybody. And we are really grateful for all of you. And we look forward to continuing our conversations with y'all as well.
Thank you. And thank you so much. And I mean, we got to say the APOC over the years have been such a valuable support channel for us and encouraging us. And so thank you all for your time today, hanging out with us, and those who are watching this later. Just want to say thank you so much for just kind words and support for us, because you never know what you get yourself into. And to see the outcome of that is it's not one person, it's not two people, it's a lot of people. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Buen camino.
Buen camino. Bye,
Buen camino.
everybody.